All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are diving deep into commando leadership.
Ooh, I like that, diving deep.
Yeah, we're going deep on this one, and it's all based on what you shared from William A. Cohen, Ph.D., Secrets of Special Ops Leaders.
That's right. Great book.
Now, I know what you might be thinking at home listening to this audiobook, military history. Are we about to, learn how to storm the beaches of Normandy?
Not exactly, no, although there are some incredible stories in there.
Oh, for sure.
What we're really doing is pulling out those battle-tested leadership principles,
Okay.
the stuff that applies whether you're in the boardroom or, facing a tough project deadline.
Right, that's the thing. It's about taking these almost superhuman, military achievements and
Right.
saying, okay, how do we apply that to, everyday life?
Exactly.
And the crazy thing is, the book kicks off with someone you might not expect, Steve Jobs.
It's true, and I think that's why I was so drawn to this book, right?
Yeah.
Because we're talking early Apple here, before they were, the tech giant that we all know.
Right, they were scrappy.
They were the underdogs.
Big time.
And you've got this young, ambitious Steve Jobs going up against, like, IBM, which, back then was the behemoth.
They were the establishment for sure.
Exactly. And he had limited resources, really, zero track record at that point.
And no money.
And no money. But he had this massive vision for personal computing.
It really is kind of, like you said, that classic David and Goliath story.
It is, and it's that commando mindset, right? Like,
Yeah.
here's this small force going up against this giant.
Yeah, behind enemy lines kind of thing.
Exactly.
And it's interesting how he didn't use brute force.
Well, how could he?
He couldn't, but he used something even more powerful, partnerships.
Strategic partnerships.
Yeah.
Yeah. First, you've got Wozniak, who brings, that engineering,
The tech.
the tech genius. Yeah. Then he brings in Mike Markula, who not only was a marketing whiz,
money.
but also had the money, the crucial funding that they needed.
So this is where I think there's a real lesson for anyone listening.
Absolutely.
It's not just about finding a partner.
Right.
It's that self-awareness to look at yourself and say, okay, where are the gaps in what I can do?
Yeah.
Where are the gaps in the resources I have?
And to be able to bring those people in, right?
Yeah, like strategic humility on
Yeah,
this.
amplify your strengths by bringing in people who are strong where you're not.
So you're not this, lone wolf, one-man army.
Right, you can't be everything to everyone.
You can't, and I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up.
I think so too.
They think they got to do it all themselves.
Right.
But Jobs, he understood that it was about building that team.
Building that A-team.
Yeah, and not only the partnership thing, but there's another commando trait here.
Oh, for sure.
It's that relentless pursuit of the goal.
That unwavering commitment.
He faced so much rejection.
Especially early on, yeah.
Oh yeah, especially when he was looking for that funding, but he just wouldn't quit.
Right. That's the difference maker.
Yeah.
It's that commitment. And commando leaders, they have that in spades.
They don't let these little setbacks, these little no's,
Right.
completely derail them.
They find a way.
Yeah, they push through.
Exactly.
And then the other thing with Jobs, and we were talking about this before we started recording,
Right.
it's the agility.
Right. That ability to move fast, to adapt.
Yeah, almost like outmaneuvering the giants.
You think about special ops units, right?
Yeah.
They have to constantly be adjusting their tactics
Yeah.
based on the terrain, the enemy, the situation.
Name's changing.
Constantly changing, and that's what Jobs did in the business world.
Yeah, he had to.
He knew that Apple couldn't compete with IBM in terms of size. Resources, right? So he focused on speed, on disrupting the market. Innovation. He was constantly adapting.
Stay ahead of the curve.
Staying one step ahead.
So, what's the takeaway for our listener here?
Well, I think, most people listening to this probably aren't building, the next Apple.
Right.
But this idea of strategic partnerships, unwavering commitment, and agility.
That's huge.
That's gold in any field.
It really is.
It's about recognizing you don't need to have all the answers or all the resources right from the start.
Yeah.
It's about being strategic, committed, and adaptable.
And those are the things that allow you to really, I think,
Punch above your weight.
yeah, punch above your weight, overcome these impossible odds, whatever that is for you.
Absolutely.
Now, the book then dives into another principle of commando leadership, which is commitment.
Yeah, and they use a pretty unexpected example, I thought.
Yeah, what was it?
Herb Kelleher, the CEO of Southwest Airlines.
Okay, yeah.
What's fascinating about him is that he kind of flipped the script. Instead of, those big CEO salaries, he paid himself less.
Less, really.
Than the industry average.
Wow.
But here's the key.
Okay.
He paid his employees more.
So he's almost like inverting that pyramid.
He is. He's fostering the sense of ownership and commitment.
Yeah, I could see why you said it was an unexpected example.
Yeah.
Because, on the surface, it seems kind of crazy.
It does, but if you think about it from that commando perspective...
Like no man left behind.
It is. It's that team mentality.
Yeah, translated to the business world.
Exactly.
He's not just building a workforce.
Right.
He's building a team.
He's building a family almost, and it went beyond just compensation, right?
Okay.
You've got their legendary no layoffs policy.
Wow.
That solidified that bond, like, we're all in this together.
It's putting his money where his mouth is.
It is. He's demonstrating that commitment, and ultimately, right?
Yeah.
That creates incredible loyalty.
Yeah, unshakable.
Which translates into a motivated workforce that performs better.
So everyone listening, you might not be running an airline.
Right.
But I think this is a question we all need to be asking ourselves.
Absolutely.
Are we just managing employees?
Or are we building that deeper commitment?
Because I think it's clear from this example that when the leader demonstrates that true commitment, it inspires the same in the team.
And then they go to this really interesting example of what happens when you don't have that commitment.
Okay. And I'm curious to see where they go with this.
Well, they use The Apprentice.
Okay.
Donald Trump's The Apprentice.
From airlines to reality TV, this is where I love how these guys connect the dots.
It is.
But what's the commando connection here?
So they focus on Kwame Jackson, who was a contestant, and his teammate Omarosa.
Omarosa, okay. Yeah.
Now, Kwame, despite being a strong leader, he was undermined by Omarosa's, lack of discipline and her failure to follow the plan.
So even if you're the best leader in the world, if your team isn't with you.
If they're not aligned.
Yeah. It's going to fall apart.
Yeah, it's like a weak link in a chain. That lack of commitment, it can derail even the best laid plans.
And that brings us to, I think, another really crucial element of commando leadership.
Yeah.
Discipline.
Right. And to illustrate this, they take us back to the Civil War.
Okay, interesting.
General George Wagner.
All right, I'm not familiar with him.
So Wagner actually disobeyed a direct order during a battle.
Ooh, risky.
Risky, but he won.
He won.
And he won.
Okay, so you'd think he'd be like a hero?
You would, but he was actually relieved of command.
Wait, what? Why?
Because he broke the chain of command.
Oh, okay.
And this is where that discipline piece comes in, especially in a military context.
Right.
It's about predictability and coordinated action.
It's got to be like clockwork.
It does. You need to know that everyone's going to follow orders.
Yeah.
You need to know that the unit's going to function as a cohesive whole.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's just chaos. It is. So let's bring it back to our listener here.
Absolutely.
They're probably not leading troops into battle, but this idea of discipline.
Right. It applies everywhere.
Think about your own team.
Yeah.
Where do you see those missed deadlines, that unclear communication, that lack of just,
people going rogue.
People going rogue. Yeah. Identifying those areas.
Yeah.
That's the first step towards building a more disciplined team.
It is. And it's not just about being rigid or enforcing rules. But it's about creating that culture of accountability.
Gotcha.
Of shared understanding, of trust.
And that's what allows you to perform under pressure.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got commitment, we've got discipline. Now the book dives into this concept of the commando within.
Yes, and this is all about self-discipline.
Okay, I like that, the commando within.
And they use a powerful example. I thought Pat Tillman, the NFL player, who walked away from fame and fortune to serve after 9/11.
Yeah, incredible story.
It really is. It speaks to that level of self-discipline that's inspiring.
Yeah.
He wasn't driven by, external reward.
He was driven from within.
He was driven from within by a sense of duty, commitment to something greater than himself.
Yeah, to leave behind a career, a lucrative NFL career, to enlist in the Army Rangers.
That takes a special kind of self-discipline.
It does.
And what they point out is that self-discipline is often ingrained early.
Okay.
It's difficult to instill in adults who haven't already cultivated it.
So what does that mean for our listeners? Should they just give up on trying to develop self-discipline?
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's about recognizing it as a key factor when you're assessing your team.
Okay.
So look for those individuals who demonstrate that inner drive,
right?
That ability to stay focused, to achieve goals even without constant supervision.
So those are the people that are going to thrive in those high-pressure environments.
So exactly.
Makes sense. So instead of trying to, force it upon people,
right,
it's about identifying who's already got it.
Exactly, and then empowering them.
And then hopefully that spreads, that energy spreads to the rest of the team.
Absolutely. Now that brings us to another core element of commando leadership, building the team itself.
Okay, yeah.
And they highlight a fascinating figure from World War II.
Okay.
Evans Carlson of the Marine Raiders.
The Marine Raiders, those were like the elite, the special forces.
Yeah, the ones doing those daring raids behind enemy lines.
Yeah, yeah. What made Carlson stand out?
He was known for his unconventional leadership style.
Okay.
He abolished officer privileges.
Whoa, really?
Emphasized teamwork above rank. And he even adopted the motto, gung-ho.
Gung-ho. What does that even mean?
It essentially means working together.
Working together. Okay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just about, those individual skills. It was the collective.
The collective effort, the synergy of the team.
So it's like what we were saying about Steve Jobs.
Exactly.
Recognizing that, together you can achieve more.
Way more.
Than you ever could alone.
Carlson understood that individual brilliance is valuable, but it's that coordinated effort that multiplies results.
It's like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly. And he created a culture where everyone felt valued.
Everyone had a role to play.
Everyone had a role to play, and collaboration was key to achieving the mission.
And what's funny? This idea of teamwork being more important than individual skill.
It pops up again and again.
They even bring in some scientific research on this, don't they?
They do, yeah. Talking about Air Force bomber crews.
Right, where the time spent together as a team mattered more than individual skill.
For minimizing accidents, yeah, and for achieving the mission.
That's incredible.
It is, and they even bring up geese flying in formation.
Oh, yeah.
71% increased range just by working together.
That's crazy, just from the aerodynamics.
Just from that V shape, nature itself demonstrating the power of the team.
So what does this all mean for, our listener who's trying to build a team?
I think it really boils down to this. Building a cohesive team, it's not about just assembling a group of superstars.
Right.
It's about fostering that collaboration.
Yeah.
Leveraging those individual strengths to achieve something greater than the sum of its parts.
So everyone has that vital role.
Everyone plays a vital role.
Okay, so we've established building the team. That's essential.
Right.
But how do you actually go from, a group of individuals to this cohesive unit?
Well, they talk about the 4 stages of team development.
Okay, yeah. It's that forming, storming, norming, performing model.
It is, and I know it might sound familiar.
Yeah.
But what's interesting here is how the leader's role changes.
Oh, okay.
Depending on where the team is at.
Okay. So walk me through this.
Sure. So initially, that forming stage, people are just getting to know each other.
Right, feeling each other out.
Figuring out roles and responsibilities, a lot of excitement.
Yeah.
But also a lot of uncertainty.
Right, you don't know where you fit in yet.
Exactly. So the leader's primary role there is to provide clarity.
Oh.
To set expectations, establish that foundation of trust.
So it's almost like setting the stage,
Yeah.
like that initial briefing before a commando operation.
It is getting everyone aligned on the objectives.
Yeah.
And then as the team moves into that storming phase, things can get a little messy.
Oh.
Conflict arises.
Personalities clashing.
Personalities clash, power struggles.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like a test of the team's resilience.
Okay, so this is where the leader's got to, step in.
Step up, but not to suppress the conflict.
Oh.
It's about managing it constructively.
Oh.
Facilitating healthy debate, encouraging that open communication.
So the leader becomes almost like a mediator.
A mediator, a coach,
Yeah.
sometimes a referee.
Keeping it clean.
Keeping it clean, making sure it doesn't derail the team.
Right.
But actually helps to forge a stronger bond.
Yeah, so let's say they make it through that storming phase.
Right, then we get to norming.
Oh, okay.
The team starts to gel.
They're figuring it out.
Roles become more defined.
Okay.
There's that sense of unity.
A shared purpose.
Processes are established.
Okay.
Communication improves.
Things are clicking,
yeah.
So what's the leader focused on here?
Now it's about empowering the team.
Okay.
Encouraging that continuous improvement.
Stepping back a bit.
allowing them to take more ownership.
But still there to provide that guidance if needed.
Right. So it's that delicate balance.
Yeah, like sending a squad out on a mission.
Exactly.
Trusting them to do their thing.
But knowing you've got their back.
Yeah, if things go south.
Exactly.
So then the final stage, performing.
This is where the magic happens.
Everyone's in sync.
They're working seamlessly together, achieving at a high level.
This is the dream, right?
This is the dream. It's a team that's firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
Achieving those seemingly impossible goals.
Yeah, exceeding expectations.
Exceeding expectations.
And the leader's just kind of like...
facilitating, empowering.
Yeah, they've created the machine.
Exactly. And it really works beautifully, I think.
Yeah.
It's this framework for understanding how teams develop.
And how that leadership role evolves.
Right. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to leadership.
You got to adapt.
You got to adapt.
Yeah, so for our listener, great way to assess your own team, right?
Where are you on this scale?
Yeah, are you still storming?
Still working through those personality clashes?
Or are you guys performing?
Have you reached that stage of true synergy?
Recognizing that stage is key to leading effectively.
It is.
It's about meeting your team where they're at and then guiding them towards that performing commando-like state.
And speaking of high-performing teams and achieving those impossible goals, the book brings up another fascinating historical figure, John Mosby, the Confederate Gray Ghost.
Okay, Gray Ghost. I'm intrigued.
So Mosby was a master of guerrilla warfare.
Okay.
Harassing Union forces for years with just a tiny band of men.
So we're back to that commando theme, operating behind enemy lines.
Exactly, taking on a much larger force.
Using unconventional tactics.
Unconventional tactics.
Yeah.
But what's even more interesting, I think, is the power of his vision.
Okay.
He wasn't just fighting a war.
Yeah.
He was fighting for a cause.
He believed in something.
He believed in it. He believed in Southern honor.
Okay.
And that inspired fierce loyalty in his men.
So it wasn't just about the tactics.
It was about the why.
The why,
That's the vision.
That resonated with his commandos.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a crucial lesson for any leader.
It is. Whether you're on a battlefield or in the boardroom.
Yeah.
That clear, compelling vision.
Acts like a North Star.
It aligns everyone's efforts.
Yeah.
Gives them something to strive for.
And it can make even those impossible goals seem achievable.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now we've got this vision, and then the book jumps to the world of business, highlighting Carlos Slim Helú.
Yeah, the Mexican billionaire.
And the funny thing is...
he was tech-averse.
Yeah, he was.
Built a massive telecom empire, but barely knew how to use a computer.
Yeah, but the thing is, he had the vision.
He had the vision. He saw the power of the internet.
Right.
Even if he wasn't personally a tech whiz.
So it's not about being, like, the expert in every area.
No.
It's about being able to recognize those opportunities, even if you don't know all the ins and outs of how it works.
Exactly.
And this is where I think the message to Garcia's story comes in.
Ah, yeah.
Which the book uses to illustrate the importance of initiative.
Of being resourceful.
Finding a way, even when the path is unclear.
It's that commando mindset.
Yeah, taking ownership, figuring things out, getting it done.
No matter what.
I love that story. It's about being the person who doesn't need their hand held.
Right.
Who takes the initiative to make things happen.
Absolutely.
And then they bring in another powerful example. Captain Rocky Versace.
A POW in Vietnam.
Who never gave up hope.
Incredible.
Even in the face of, like, unimaginable hardship.
He embodied that never give up spirit.
Yeah, and continued to inspire his fellow prisoners.
Earned the Medal of Honor posthumously.
Yeah, what a story.
Talk about living the vision.
Talk about living the vision.
So that brings us to another crucial element of commando leadership. Accepting blame.
Okay.
And giving credit where it's due.
Okay.
And they go back to Gettysburg with Robert E. Lee.
Okay.
Lee took full responsibility for the loss at Gettysburg.
Even though so many factors were outside his control.
They were, but he took ownership.
And that's interesting because we often see the opposite, right?
All the time, yeah.
Leaders deflecting blame, pointing fingers.
Trying to save their own skin.
Yeah, but Lee's doing the opposite.
He's shielding his men.
Yeah.
Preserving morale, deepening their loyalty.
So it's not about being a scapegoat.
Right.
It's about setting the standard for accountability.
And that inspires the same in others.
Okay, so we've got the vision, the commitment, the discipline, the team building.
And accepting blame.
Yeah, accepting blame. And then they jump to a more modern example of commando leadership in action.
Captain Jason Amarine in Afghanistan.
Okay, and what can we learn from him?
So his story is a masterclass in adaptability.
Okay.
Decisiveness, leading by example.
Okay.
He was initially tasked with supporting Hamid Karzai, but ended up leading this ragtag force to victory against the Taliban.
Oh, wow.
Talk about being thrown into the deep end.
Yeah, so classic commando scenario.
It is volatile environment. Unpredictable challenges.
Having to make decisions with limited information. So he didn't just survive.
He thrived.
He thrived. He took charge.
He took charge, communicated effectively,
persuaded Karzai,
coordinated airstrikes, and led his men to victory.
And doing all this while exemplifying those commando traits.
Decisive.
Clear communication.
Deliberating by example.
Not from a safe distance.
No, he was right there on the front lines with his men.
And that's, I think, where you really build that trust.
Absolutely.
That respect.
Where people are willing to follow you anywhere.
Yeah, into the fire.
And then they draw this fascinating parallel between Amarine's experience in Afghanistan and Anne Mulcahy's leadership at Xerox.
Wait, Xerox?
Xerox, the copier company.
What's the connection?
So Mulcahy took over as CEO during a really tough time. Financial turmoil. And she applied a lot of those same commando principles.
So it's really a testament to how adaptable these principles are.
It is. It's not just for the military. It's for anyone facing a challenge.
Making tough decisions.
Rallying a team.
Yeah, in any environment.
It's that mindset. It's that action.
Not just your title.
Not just your title.
Okay, let's talk rewards.
Sure.
It's human nature to want to be appreciated.
Absolutely.
But the book cautions us to think beyond just money.
Right.
They use the Doolittle raid as a prime example.
Yeah, such a daring mission.
Bombing Tokyo in World War II.
So Doolittle, he couldn't offer his men promotions.
Right. They were a temporary unit.
Risky mission.
Highly risky, yeah.
But he understood the power of symbolism, of shared experience, so he promised them a lavish party.
Upon their return.
Upon their return, something to look forward to.
Something to celebrate.
Exactly.
And it worked.
It did.
They were motivated by something far greater than a paycheck.
Camaraderie.
Shared sacrifice.
Knowing their efforts would be recognized.
Yeah, and the book goes on to highlight a variety of these non-monetary rewards.
Titles, recognition, opportunities for growth, public acknowledgement.
Even just a thank you note.
Yeah, just acknowledging their contribution.
Like Mary Kay with their pink Cadillacs.
It's a symbol of achievement.
It's a statement.
It's a statement.
So it's really about understanding what truly motivates your team.
It is, recognizing that it's not always about the money. Sometimes it's those things that tap into our sense of purpose, of belonging, of accomplishment.
Now, on the flip side, the book gives a pretty stark warning about excessive executive compensation.
Right.
So how does that fit into this commando leadership framework?
Well, it's about fairness and shared sacrifice.
Okay.
When those at the top are rewarding themselves disproportionately, it creates resentment, demotivates everyone else.
Undermines that commitment. To the shared mission.
It sends the message that some are more valuable than others.
Which is the opposite of what we're talking about here.
It is. It goes against the very essence of commando leadership.
It's like that commando unit where the leader takes all the spoils of war, and the rest of the team gets, scraps.
Yeah, and that breeds distrust.
Okay, one last point before we move on.
Sure.
Making the most of what you have.
Ah, yes, and they bring up Pappy Boyington.
Pappy Boyington, legendary pilot.
Led the Black Sheep Squadron in World War II.
What a character.
He was given this group of misfit pilots.
Oh, the ones that didn't fit in anywhere else.
Replacements, didn't fit into the other squadrons.
Rejects.
But he saw their potential.
Instead of a liability.
Exactly. Trained them rigorously.
Instilled discipline.
Turned them into a top-performing unit.
So
it's about recognizing that you don't always have the luxury of choosing your team or your resources.
Right.
It's about taking what you've got, identifying those hidden strengths.
And making it work.
And maximizing your potential even when it seems like you're starting at a disadvantage.
And they highlight another great example, Coach Resnick, who coached a girls' high school soccer team.
Yeah.
To an incredible 109-game winning streak. He didn't have, the most talented athletes.
Yeah.
But he focused on rigorous training attention to detail.
And maximizing their potential.
So it's that commando mindset again.
It is embracing the challenge.
Refusing to be limited by circumstances.
Finding a way to win.
Even when the odds are stacked against you.
It's that belief that even with limited resources, with a team of so-called misfits, you can achieve extraordinary things.
So it's not about having the perfect team.
Right.
Or the ideal resources.
It's about the spirit. Yeah. That unwavering commitment to making the most of what you've got.
And that's a powerful lesson for anyone in any field facing any challenge.
You know, that idea of making the most of what you have reminds me of another story from the audiobook.
Okay.
They talk about Steve Barr and his approach to education.
Oh, yeah, Steve Barr.
Yeah.
He wasn't an educator by trade, was he?
He wasn't, no.
He started, if I remember correctly, he started a charter school.
That's right. He had no background in education. But he saw a problem, a high dropout rate in a poor Los Angeles neighborhood.
Classic commando move.
It is. He saw potential where others saw only limitations.
He didn't wait for someone else to fix it.
No, he took charge.
Yeah.
Made a difference.
And he didn't have it easy, did he?
Not at all. He invested his own savings to start this charter school.
Wow.
Focused on helping those average students graduate.
The ones that are often overlooked.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a powerful message, right?
Yeah.
It's not about having the perfect resources.
It's about the will to make a difference.
To see that potential.
Exactly.
And he challenged the system, didn't he?
He did. He proved that even with limited resources and students facing incredible challenges, success was possible.
I'm sensing a theme here.
What's that?
We've got Steve Jobs building a tech empire from his garage.
Right.
Pappy Boyington leading a squadron of misfits to victory.
And now Steve Barr transforming education.
It's all about maximizing what you have, not letting those circumstances define your limits.
You're hitting on a core principle of commando leadership.
Yeah.
It's not about waiting for the ideal conditions or the perfect team.
Right.
It's about taking what you've got
and making it work.
So
what's the lesson here for our listener? Maybe they're not, starting a school or leading a squadron.
Right, but they're facing their own set of challenges.
Limited resources.
Absolutely. So it's about adopting that commando mindset.
Okay.
Looking for opportunities instead of focusing on limitations.
Right.
Being resourceful, creative, persistent.
Believing that even when the odds are stacked against you, you can find a way to achieve your goals.
Now, the audiobook shifts gears a bit here.
Okay.
And talks about a principle that's often overlooked.
Oh.
But so crucial for long-term success.
Yeah.
Managing your energy.
Ah, interesting.
They compare commando leaders to long-distance runners.
Okay, not sprinters.
Not sprinters.
Yeah.
It's about sustainability, about pacing yourself.
Right. You can't burn yourself out in the first mile.
Yeah. You can't. You need to conserve your energy.
Yeah.
Make sure you have enough stamina to go the distance.
Especially when you're leading a team through challenging terrain.
Absolutely.
And it's so easy to get caught up in the hustle.
Oh, I know.
To push yourself to the limit.
Thinking that's the only way to succeed.
But it's not sustainable.
It's not. And it leads to burnout.
Yeah, poor decisions.
Health problems even.
And they highlight something we all know but often forget.
What's that?
Sleep, exercise, nutrition.
The basics.
The basics, but they're so crucial.
They are, especially when you're under pressure.
It's like trying to run a marathon on junk food and no sleep.
Right. You might make it a few miles.
But you're not going to finish the race.
And they even talk about taking breaks.
Okay.
Stepping away from the chaos.
Yeah.
Giving your mind and body a chance to recharge.
That can be tough for,
For driven people.
Yeah, type A personalities, always got to be on.
Always got to be productive.
But sometimes the most productive thing you can do
is to disconnect.
Step away.
Let your mind wander.
It's like sharpening the axe so you can cut down the tree more effectively.
I like that analogy. It's not about being lazy.
Right.
It's about recognizing that in order to perform at our best, we need to give ourselves time to rest and recharge.
So for our listener, this is a good moment to pause and take stock. Are you taking care of yourself?
Physically, mentally.
Are you giving yourself permission to rest, to recharge?
Because remember, commando leaders, they're in it for the long haul.
Yeah, they're not looking for those quick wins.
And building sustainable success.
Now, the audiobook then dives into one of the most challenging aspects of leadership, leading during a crisis.
Oh, yeah.
And they use Admiral Horatio Nelson.
At the Battle of Trafalgar.
Legendary figure, the Battle of Trafalgar. Pivotal moment in British naval history.
Decisive victory against the combined French and Spanish fleets.
But Nelson was outnumbered.
He was...
Stakes were high.
Incredibly high.
And he knew bold action was required.
He couldn't hesitate.
Couldn't second-guess himself.
No.
So what did he do?
Well, Nelson was known for his aggressive tactics.
Okay.
He didn't play it safe, didn't wait for the perfect conditions.
That's the way did he do.
Charged straight into the heart of the enemy fleet.
Wow.
Disrupted their formations.
Risky move.
It was, but it secured a brilliant victory.
I mean, that takes guts.
It does.
To face those odds, to risk everything on a bold maneuver.
It goes against our natural instinct for self-preservation.
It does.
And that's what separates commando leaders from the rest.
Yeah.
They don't freeze in the face of crisis.
They don't get bogged down in analysis paralysis.
They trust their instincts.
Make a decision.
And act.
Even when it feels risky.
But it's not just about being reckless.
No, of course not.
Nelson's boldness was based on careful planning, a deep understanding of his enemy.
And a willingness to adapt.
You got it. It's about calculated risk-taking.
Yeah.
Having the courage to act when others hesitate.
But also the wisdom to plan.
To assess the situation.
And adapt as needed.
And they also highlight another crucial element of Nelson's leadership. Communication.
Okay.
He made sure his captains understood his plan.
Yeah.
Inspired them with his confidence.
So important.
And created that sense of shared purpose.
Which was essential for achieving victory.
Communication is critical, especially in a crisis.
When things are chaotic.
When the pressure's on.
Yeah.
Clear, concise, and inspiring communication.
It can make all the difference.
It can be the difference between panic and decisive action.
It's about calming those fears, providing direction.
Reminding everyone why they're fighting.
Why this mission matters.
Unifying the team, focusing their energy on achieving the objective.
So for our listener, next time you're facing a crisis,
whether it's a business challenge or a personal setback,
think about Nelson's example.
Be bold.
Be decisive.
But also communicate clearly.
Inspire your team.
And remind everyone of the shared vision.
That's great advice. It's about finding that balance between action and reflection.
Between decisiveness and careful planning.
Leading with courage, but also with wisdom.
Now, the audiobook then delves into this fascinating psychological aspect of commando leadership, managing fear.
Okay.
And they make a distinction between rational and irrational fear.
Okay, so rational fear, I think we all understand that.
Right.
It's that healthy fear that keeps us safe.
Exactly.
It's what stops us from, running into traffic.
Or jumping off a cliff.
Yeah, without a parachute.
It's based on a realistic assessment of danger.
It helps us make smart choices.
Exactly.
Then there's irrational fear.
The kind that paralyzes us.
Yeah.
Prevents us from taking risks, pursuing our dreams.
Achieving our full potential.
The fear of failure.
Yeah.
The fear of judgment, the fear of the unknown.
It's that voice in our head that says, you're not good enough.
What if you fail?
What will people think?
It keeps us playing small.
Stuck in our comfort zone.
And the audiobook emphasizes that commando leaders need to master both types of fear. They need to acknowledge rational fear, take precautions.
But not let it dictate their actions.
Exactly. So be smart.
Assess the risks.
But don't let fear paralyze you.
It's about finding that sweet spot between caution and courage.
And even more importantly, they need to conquer those irrational fears.
Push through those limitations.
Embrace the challenge.
Take those leaps of faith.
Even when it feels uncomfortable.
Because on the other side of fear lies growth.
Opportunity, fulfillment.
And they highlight a technique used by Navy SEALs called stress inoculation.
Oh, yeah, I love this.
It's about exposing yourself to controlled doses of stress.
So you build up a tolerance.
You don't crumble when the real pressure hits.
Exactly. It's like training for a marathon.
You don't just run 26 miles.
Not all at once.
You build up gradually.
You push yourself a little further each time.
And eventually you're able to run the whole race.
It's the same with fear.
Okay.
By facing our fears.
Stepping outside of our comfort zones.
We build resilience.
We develop confidence.
We become better equipped to handle whatever challenges come our way.
So for our listener, what are your irrational fears? What are those things that are holding you back?
What's preventing you from taking that next step?
From pursuing that dream?
Identify those fears and then start taking small steps to confront them.
You might be surprised by what you're capable of. It's funny how we often think of commando leaders as these fearless warriors, but what we're learning here is that it's not about the absence of fear, it's about mastering it. It's about understanding that fear is a natural human emotion, but it doesn't have to control us.
You're absolutely right. It's about channeling that fear, using it to your advantage.
Yeah, yeah. And that mastery of fear, that ability to make clear-headed decisions, even under pressure.
It leads us to another crucial skill.
Yeah.
Making decisions quickly and effectively.
Yeah, I can imagine in a combat situation, you don't have time for, like, endless debate.
No time for second guessing.
You got to assess, make the call, and act.
And what's interesting is that they emphasize that commando leaders, they often have to operate with incomplete information.
Right, they don't have all the data.
They don't have the luxury of waiting for all the data points or running elaborate analysis.
We got to trust their gut.
They do. They have to make decisions based on the best available information.
And be prepared to adjust course as needed.
Absolutely. Adapt on the fly.
Right, right. It's like that saying, perfect is the enemy of good.
It is. Sometimes waiting for that perfect solution, it leads to missed opportunities.
They use the example of Eisenhower and D-Day.
Oh, talk about pressure.
The fate of the world hanging in the balance.
And he had to make a call based on weather reports, intelligence estimates.
So many unpredictable factors.
Got a million moving parts.
I can't even imagine that weight of that decision.
It's a testament to his leadership to be able to make that monumental call.
It's a powerful example of how decisive action, even when there's so much uncertainty.
Yeah, when the stakes are high.
Can change the course of history.
And it highlights that willingness to take risks, to trust your judgment, and to act boldly.
Even when there are no guarantees.
They also talk about a technique used by fighter pilots.
Oh, yeah, the OODA loop, right.
Observe, orient, decide, act.
Yeah, it's about making those decisions, taking action.
In a rapid cycle.
Especially when every second counts.
It's about gaining an advantage by being faster, more adaptable, and less predictable.
So you're saying one step ahead.
Of your opponent, whether it's a competitor in business.
Or just a challenging circumstance in your life.
Or even that inner voice of doubt.
So it's not just about being quick, it's about being adaptable.
Processing information quickly.
Making that decision and then adjusting based on the feedback.
And this model, it can be applied in any situation where quick, decisive action is required.
Training your mind to assess, decide, and act.
Without getting bogged down in overthinking.
So for our listener, think about your own decision-making process.
Are you prone to overthinking? To analysis paralysis?
Or are you able to trust your instincts? Make the call and move forward.
And the audiobook, it provides some great tips for making decisions more effectively.
Okay, like what?
First, setting clear priorities.
Okay.
What are the truly essential tasks? What can be delegated or deferred?
Yeah, focus on what matters.
Exactly, so you avoid getting overwhelmed.
Right, right. It's about cutting through the clutter.
They also talk about gathering just enough information.
Okay.
Not getting lost in endless research or data analysis.
Right, finding that balance between being informed and being paralyzed.
And finally, being willing to make mistakes.
Oh, that's a tough one.
It is, but not every decision is going to be perfect.
Yeah.
The key is to learn from those mistakes.
Adjust your approach. Keep moving forward.
It's about embracing that iterative process.
Decision, action, feedback, adjustment.
Having the courage to take risks, the humility to acknowledge when you're wrong.
And the wisdom to learn from your experiences.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into commando leadership, I think it's important to circle back to that core theme.
Yes.
It's about mindset and actions, not just your title or your position.
It's about embracing those principles. Commitment, discipline, decisiveness, resilience.
And applying them in every aspect of our lives.
Whether we're leading a team, pursuing a dream,
or just navigating the challenges of everyday life.
It's about finding that commando within.
That inner strength, that unwavering determination to succeed.
Stepping up, leading with courage.
Making a difference in the world.
So for our listener, here's a final thought to chew on. What one principle from this deep dive resonated with you the most?
And more importantly, what action will you take this week to put it into practice?
Share your experiences with us, your insights, your challenges.
However you connect with the world.
Because this isn't just about acquiring knowledge.
It's about transforming that knowledge into action.
It's about becoming the leaders we were meant to be.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing those boundaries.